So it's almost finally here, a game that needs no introduction. And Newcastle United are not going into it in any type of form that we would want to in the biggest game of the season. But I'm going to be talking on this video, before we get into all the derby stuff, about some reasons in 2024 why I think Newcastle's fortunes are going to start turning and we are going to start seeing some more positive results, including that game against our old enemy on Saturday. So if you're curious, Newcastle fans, you know what to do for the first time in 2024, and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, you lovely Newcastle fans, and this is my first sit-down video of 2024, so Happy New Year to all. I hope you've had a good one, a good Christmas, and we're in that weird period, aren't we, where the darker nights seem darker, you've got to get up for work on the morning, you can't really be bothered, you're still feeling a bit rough from Christmas, you're back to the gym, you're trying to cut out drink, not made easier by one of the biggest games of the season on the first weekend of January. It's just a bit of a bleh time. But, as I've just said, if ever there was a reason to give us a bit more spring in our step in the first week of January, it is the Mackems away from home. Those matches these days do not come along very often, as we all know. Before I get into all that though, Newcastle fans, do us a favour, drop us a little likey. Lou, that goes a very long way. It does you make that your New Year's gift to me. It just means that this video might go to a couple more Newcastle supporting eyes, and wouldn't that be nice? Makes it all worth it. And if you like my opinion by the end of this, whack that subscribe. I am wearing another old school top. I am still at my mum and dad's before I head back up for the derby game, and I just thought I'd pull this one out. This is the 12-13 season. Last time we were in Europe before this Champions League campaign under Mr. Alan Pardew. Lovely. Virgin on the front. Not Virgin by shirt, Virgin by name. Although it does feel like quite a long time. But we don't need to talk about that. But I'm going to show you a lovely name on the back as well. Look at that. Mr. Hatem Ben Arfa, he sways to the left, he sways to the right. Hatem Ben Arfa, he'll make you look shite. Love that chant. Not everyone's cup of tea, Ben Arfa, but those are the sorts of players you want to look back on. And it's another beauty. I love voluminous tops. But we're not here to talk about my old Newcastle shirt collection under my bed. We are here, as I said at the start of this video, to talk about... I'm not going to make this video about the Sunderland game. I'm going to try and do two videos in the build-up to the match that are going to come out. The game itself and what it means to me personally, and then a match preview. But this one is going to be almost a rallying call. Now, the Liverpool game on New Year's Day, we were hoping maybe to get some answers to questions that have been lingering from Luton and Nottingham Forest. Did we get them? Yes. Did we also maybe get some more questions that need answers from that game? Yes, maybe. Glass half full might look at that match as chances created at Anfield, goals scored at one of the hardest places in Europe to go, one of the most informed teams, stayed in the game until the last minute, a little bit more zip and energy about us in certain areas, Gordon, Isak, Joe Linton being back, but glass half empty and needing to go back to the bar, might look at that match as 34 goals on goal against us, which is one of the highest, I think it's the highest of the season, the highest ever XG score. If you're into your stats, I kind of have to be in my job to be recorded in the Premier League, and just us looking a little bit too easy to play against and the same issues between the lines. So that's... We didn't expect to get anything. We didn't get anything. I'm going to look at it in the positives, that we did look a little bit brighter in attack. We did look like we had a bit more zip about us, and there's still areas to be worked on. And that brings me on to this video topic. Now, Sunderland on Saturday, massive game, but I want to talk more generally on this one, why I think Eddie Howe's Mags are going to improve in 2024. I really, really do. Now, the first one, and this one might trigger some people, but the facts are there to prove it. Fatigue. And only having one game a week in the new year. That's going to be massive, I'm telling you. No Champions League, no Carabao Cup semi-finals, as much as we would have loved to have had those two legs to look forward to. It is going to be one match, rest, recover, train all week, go again at the weekend, apart from the odd midweek Premier League game. I think there's one on January the 31st. That's going to be a massive deal. And do you know why that is? And these are just facts, Newcastle fans. And yes, the fatigue card, oh God, using that one again. There are not many teams in the Premier League that play the way we do. And yes, the intensity card maybe bores Eddie Howe, he maybe gets sick of it. You maybe get sick of hearing it. But like it or lump it, Eddie Howe's style of play is all based around intensity. And what we are seeing with injuries, which I'll touch on in a second, but with so many fixtures, whether it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, you name it, the games were one after another. To be able to play that style with the same group of players without rotation is nigh on impossible. Liverpool have played that style of football for spells. They did it when they won the title. They had a decent squad rotation. Man City play a bit of a pressing game. They've got one of the best squads in the world. There are only select teams, and I'm not saying teams that don't have as much of the ball don't still have a very physical and stressful, mentally stressful job in the Premier League. I'm saying that the amount of kilometres we cover, what we build our team off, pressing from the front, is too difficult to maintain in the best league in the world with the same players week in, week out. And if you want us to get a little bit more deeper into this, I'm going to show you why. Bruno Guimaraes is not a defensive midfielder. He's not a number 6, as it's now traditionally known. God, I get sick of all that talk. He is not. He might play there. He might be great on the pivot. He might be great at playing the pass before the pass and igniting our attacks. But he will never ever be someone who is going to protect his back foot. He can get his foot in where needs be. He's a passionate player, but that's not why he was brought in this football club, and that's not what I want to see him used for. Bruno, playing in that position for this Newcastle team, has worked wonderfully for Eddie Howe in getting us Champions League. Do you know why? Because that is all based around every other player around him. Anthony Gordon on the left, Almira on the right, Isak or Wilson down the middle, and each of his midfield partners in the first three, all grafting their bollocks off. We win the ball high up the pitch, and that's Bruno included in sometimes, and he's not relied on as much to protect that back four. It's so important in what he does. In 4-4-2, I've done a wonderful video. There's a Newcastle fan who works for 4-4-2. If you've never watched any of their stuff, please do. It's not just your generic same match stuff that most Newcastle YouTubers do. Maybe I fall in that category, I don't know. He really talks about the importance of Bruno and how he's being affected and why that's our defence is looking so leaky. Our defence does not suddenly forget how to defend overnight. It is not getting protection as much anymore because Bruno is being opened up more in front of that back four because Almiron's not working as hard to press from the front. Gordon just doesn't, and we can see it. We're not stupid. We can see these players are not working as hard as what we've known before. Isak's looked a little bit out of sorts at times. Wilson's been in and out of the team with injury. Longstaff's just coming back. Joe Linton's been in and out. Miley, as much as a fantastic footballer I think he is, he maybe doesn't get about the pitch. Maybe that's one of his weaker points. And it's exposing us more and more and more. And does that tap into Eddie Howe maybe needing to mix up his tactics a little bit to suit us having all these matches and injuries? Yes, and I've talked about that in previous videos. He's not immune from saying he maybe needs new ideas. But trust me when I say this. I'm going to throw some more stats at you. Edit Lawson on Twitter, who's one of my favourite accounts to follow, he showed our defensive stats before the Bournemouth game. If you remember the Bournemouth game, that was the first time we looked leggy. We were shite. Bournemouth ran us off the pitch. We never got going, barely created a chance, and it was an awful day at the office. Our stats in the build-up to that match, compared to since that game, chalk and cheese. And I'm going to share them on the screen now. Absolute chalk and cheese. Now, everything in that spider graph, the closer it gets to the middle, if you can't see it that well on this video, means more, the number's higher. So you've got like XG against us. You've got goals conceded. You've got shots surrendered. You name it on that. It's chalk and cheese. Look at the different shapes of the two. What does that tell you? When we reached that Bournemouth game, we knew the players were tired, and that's when the conversation started. Nothing is going to change in this team, how Eddie Howe wants to set us up, until we get a bit more of a rest. And the fixtures being reduced down, Newcastle fans, are one big reason, I think, that we are going to see a change in fortunes and an improvement in how we play and it working better against opposition. Now, the second point I'm going to dive straight into is that injury list. I'm going to touch wood, touch any type of wood, that injury list will reduce before it gets bigger. And do not forget, Newcastle fans, in this new year, we have got a fantastic squad when everybody is available. Look at every position. Left back, where you can argue left backs are already available. Eddie Howe's just a little bit unsure on Howe. But left back, Livramento, Burn, Target when he's back from injury. Centre-backs, Lascelles, Dummett, Kraft, Shea, Botman. Honestly, the list goes on. It's centre-back, right-back, Trippier, Livramento. Kraft can play there. Manquillo when he's available. He might be out in January. Who knows? Goalkeeper, we've got 2 options. Midfielders, Elliot Anderson, Longstaff, Joe Linton, Willock, who's so important to everything we do. Tonali, who I won't touch on him because he's not going to be back till next season. Jacob Murphy, fighting Almiron, who's been out of sorts on that right-hand side. Harvey Barnes, who's going to be like a new signing when he comes in, who knows where the goal is. He looked class in pre-season, scoring at St James's. He suddenly comes into the fold. We've got a good squad. Yes, people are going to argue our recruitment hasn't been right just because Hall's not kicked much of a football. Tonali's a very, very, very good footballer. And I refuse to believe Eddie Howe knew about his gambling or anyone knew about his gambling. Bollocks. It's just unfortunate. But that injury list will reduce in the new year. Touch wood. The more players we get back, the better our system works, like I've just talked about. And we will start to see a change in fortunes when we can bring players in and we can mix positions up. And Eddie Howe does have his favourites. Yes. There's been a stat shown that in the time Eddie Howe's been in charge, he's used 33 players in rotation. That's not including players who've made less than 5 appearances, so like your Jamal Lewis's, because that would be a pointless stat. 33 players in his time in charge is not very high. That shows that Eddie Howe does have his favourites, and maybe that needs to change. Maybe that's one of his weaker points as a manager that he cannot seem to get away from. But I also look at that. Doesn't every manager have the favourites? Didn't Alex Ferguson have his favourites? Didn't Sir Bobby Robson have his favourites? In your Gary Speeds? In your Titus Brambles, who came in for criticism but Bobby stuck with him? I think all good managers have favourites. But that is a bit of a worry when all of our squad is fit and available. That's a different conversation for a different day. That squad will grow and grow and grow. And suddenly our substitutes bench will look fucking class. Let's call a spade a spade. It'll look class. Third point, the transfer window. We are in it right now. It's all around us. Do not believe that we have nothing to spend. Maybe that's true, but if one thing I've learned about this football club under this ownership and Dan Ashworth and everyone involved, if he sticks around, is that we do not give anything away. Eddie Howe doesn't give away anything in press conferences. As a club, we keep our cards close to our chest. Isak came out of nowhere, 60 million. Bruno we've brought in January. I know more recently players have been leaked before they've actually been announced, but generally speaking, when Eddie Howe is asked a question on transfers, you may as well just turn that press conference off at that point because it's pointless. And I do think we will look to recruit. Where do I think we need to recruit? I think a holding midfielder. Calvin Phillips, that's a different conversation for a different video. If we are getting the Calvin Phillips that was amazing at Leeds, fantastic, but he hasn't kicked the ball for 2 years, and that's a worry for me. But he suits us perfectly. He can drop in and be part of a centre-back 3. He can ping the ball around, but he will protect that back 4. Bruno is not naturally a player who wants to protect his back 4, and we miss it. We do, and that's another dimension that Eddie Howe has still not been able to add to this team. And I do think we'll add right wing. Some people are going to say replace Miggy. That's a summer job for me. Unless there's someone out there for the right price. I think a strike is important if Callum Wilson's going to be out, but that's the hardest position to get in January. Regardless, whether it's loans, whether it's scouring France and Italy and Germany, I think we will bring some players in. Maybe I'll be disappointed or come January the 31st. I don't know, but that's another reason to just stick with this group of players and this manager because January is here. And finally, and I'm going to finish on this to lead into my next videos, we need a bit of a spark. We need something to ignite us. We need a good result. If there is one match in the history of Newcastle matches that can reignite a season, I tell you what, I think this derby has come along at the perfect moment. First real game of 2024, Sunderland away, biggest, best atmosphere, means everything to this city, everything to these fans, everything to anyone connected to Newcastle United. And if you're watching this as an overseas fan, you're going to learn on my videos and you'll learn when the match arrives on Saturday how much it means, and it'll be interesting for you. If we get a convincing win in that derby, which on paper we should, that can set us up. The city will be bouncing, the fans will be bouncing, Eddie Howe will be loving it, they'll be serenading us, 6,000 of us at the stadium of shite. That can be a catalyst for our season restarting. All of this talk about this season being done with is a load of bollocks. We're about 5 points off the European places. We can pick things up. Injuries are going to reduce. Our fixture list is down. Transfer window is upon us right now. And we've got a Sunderland away game to look forward to, where a convincing win in that will be an absolutely amazing day, and it can set us up nicely going into what is a pretty difficult January, but we can start playing the way we want to play again. 2024 can still promise us a lot, and that's not next season, that's this season. So let's just stick with this group of players. I'm going to keep the faith. Maybe one day I won't have the faith, which worries me if Eddie Howe decides to stick with certain styles of play and the injury list don't reduce. There's lots of different factors there, but we do not turn into a bad team overnight, Newcastle fans. I refuse to believe it. We just need to get a couple of things in place which are upon us one by one, like I've just mentioned. Lots of things have been new for us this season. European football, you name it. Keep the faith, Newcastle fans. If you've liked this video, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you see 2024 going? Do you agree with me on any of the points, or do you totally disagree? Let me know in the January transfer window, and stick around for some Sunderland content in the next 24 hours before that massive game, getting transferred over on a bus like a prisoner, and I cannot wait. Thank you very much for watching, Newcastle fans, and keep the faith in Eddie Howe's mags in 2024. How are the lads?